Turn it on. Let's call the meeting to order. Well, we have a lot of guests this morning. All of you all are welcome. Well, that's Pete, he's not a guest.
Oh, sorry.
And Robert?
Robert was here, I don't know.
We haven't seen Robert in a while. Did you have anything to say, Robert?
Oh, Robert.
Oh, this right, yeah, sure. You know, now's the time for that knockoff Roundup with a little soap for the kochia. And believe it or not, I've had a lot of success. It will even kill that four-winged saltbush. You wouldn't think it will, but it will. And if you can spray a little of that, you don't have to mechanize, chop, and cut, and blah, blah, blah. It takes a while, but it will knock it right out of it.
Well, tell the guy right in front of
I think I did.
We're looking at him.
He's
He's not paying attention.
Okay, is that it, Robert? No, I better not ask you. Thank you, Robert.
I can't stand up when I'm full up.
Okay, Lisa, go ahead.
All right, good morning. We do have our TCRS, Texas County Retirement System representatives here today. I'd like to introduce them to you. Christina Fox was an employee service representative, and Amy Campbell is her boss. So they'll be here with us today presenting, and we'll hand it over to Christina.
Yeah, welcome.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Thank you for that kind introduction. And for allowing me here this morning to speak to you about Texas County and District Retirement System. I know that your time is valuable, so I'm going to jump right into it and talk to you. Really, the goal of my presentation is to tell you how TCDRS does retirement right, by showing you that we are a savings-based benefit plan. We have responsible plan funding, and finally, you as a board have flexibility and local control to administer the plan should you decide to participate. We have been around since 1967. We celebrated our 50th birthday last year. We are independently managed by a 9-member board of trustees that are appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Senate. We receive absolutely no state funding. What funds the plan is employer contributions into the plan, employees' own money, and then investment earnings. As of December 31st, 2016, the size of the total fund was $26 billion. We have 2017 statistics in, and we did have a great year last year with a return of 14.3%. So beginning January 1st, 2018, that actually is estimated to be about $30 billion. It's about a $30 billion fund at this point. We partner with over 735 counties and districts throughout Texas. Every county in Texas participates with us except for one. And then we have all sorts of districts, much more than just water improvement districts. We've got navigation, appraisal, hospital, the list goes on and on. We serve 282,000 Texans throughout Texas. And at nearly 90% funded, we are one of the best funded pension systems in the nation. Our 35-year return is 9.6%, and when I get further into the plan funding section of the presentation, I will elaborate on what that means. So in 2016, we paid out $1.2 billion in benefits to TCDRS retirees and their beneficiaries. Of that, over $38 million was put right back here into El Paso County. About 96% of the money that we are sending out the door goes back to Texas addresses, which means that the money that they are receiving in their benefit and retirement is going back to serve as an economic engine, not only for Texas as a whole, but for the local communities that they served. So this is how the plan works. Each pay period, employees are saving for their own retirement by contributing a portion of their pay. That portion is determined by the board of directors at their entity. That can range anywhere from 4 to 7%. Employees' deposits into TCDRS earn a 7% rate of return, which is set by the Texas legislature. At retirement, when they are ready to retire through meeting vesting and eligibility requirements, what that means is that they receive a benefit for life, no matter how long they live. With a TCDRS, they cannot outlive their retirement benefit. And finally, if employees choose to separate employment, they do have options of what they can do with their money when they leave. And I will get further into that. So I mentioned the employee deposit rate that is set by the board can be anywhere from 4 to 7%. All employees by state statute are mandated to participate in TCDRS, so nobody can opt out of participating if you decide to join. Another thing is that all employees contribute the same percentage. So one employee can't say, I want only 4% coming out of my paycheck and going towards retirement, and another say, I want 7%. Everybody contributes the same percentage, and that percentage, again, is set by you, the board. At retirement, employees' account balance that they have saved from deposits from pay, as well as all of their interest, are matched by the district. You choose that matching level. At base benefit levels, that can either be a dollar for dollar match, but that match can also go all the way up to $2.50 for every dollar the employee has saved throughout their career. You do have flexibility to adjust these two, the employee deposit rate and the employer match, on an annual basis because we give you the opportunity to review your plan and make any changes you deem necessary to coincide with your workforce needs and budget. This is an example of the power of compounding interest in the TCDRS retirement plan. The bottom shaded bars represent payroll deductions from an employee's pay coming into the system. The top shaded represents the 7% compounding interest. And you can see that in the beginning, interest isn't really generating a lot of money into the plan. But with the power of compounding interest, where they're getting interest on all their deposits plus class interest, the power of TCDRS really goes to work for the employee towards the end of their career. If this person was ready to retire after 25 years of service, they would have contributed from deposits from pay $48,000 approximately from their pay, but accumulated almost $57,000 in 7% interest that they earn. That is not including the employer match. So at base benefit levels, if this person is retiring with let me round down, $100,000 in their retirement account, and a district matches them dollar for dollar, that's another $100,000 that they're working with for retirement. So combined total, this person would be working with $200,000 for retirement, and all they contributed out of their pocket was $48,000. And that's the power of compounding investment interest over time. I mentioned portability for employees earlier in the presentation. What happens if an employee decides to separate employment at the district? What can they do with that money that was being deducted from their pay, as well as the 7% interest that they are earning? The first thing they can do is they can keep it in TCDRS, and that account would continue to earn the 7% interest. The only time they would be forced to take it out is at the age of 70 and a half, when the IRS would make them take a distribution if they are no longer actively employed at the district. They could also roll it into another qualified retirement plan. If they went somewhere that had a 401k and that 401k allowed them to, they could roll it into that to avoid paying any interest or penalties at that time. And finally, they do have the option of withdrawing everything that they contributed from pay as well as their interest. If they are below the age of 59 and a half, it will be subject to a 10% early withdrawal penalty. And because all the money in is tax deferred, they would owe taxes at that time. Finding the right fit. Now I want to talk about the decisions that the board makes for the plan parameters. These are replacement ratios, which show how much income in retirement a person's retirement benefit will replace of their final salary. So in this estimate, you're seeing a person that worked 10 years, and with base benefit levels, 4% employee deposit rate, dollar for dollar match, they would only be replacing, after 10 years, 8% of their final salary. With max benefit levels, employees depositing at 7% and a $2.50 match, that replacement ratio would go up to 25%. Let's just scroll all the way down to a careered employee that's spent 25 years, and we can see that these replacement ratios go up. In this example here, with base benefit levels, they would be replacing approximately 26% of their final salary in retirement. and with max benefit levels, approximately 78% of their final salary in retirement. And of course, you as a board can go anywhere in between with these replacement ratios because that power is in your hands to define the plan parameters. These are the decisions that we ask the board to make upon participation with TCDRS. We already talked about the employee deposit rate being either 4, 5, 6, or 7%. The employer match ranging from dollar for dollar up to $2.50 for every dollar. And then we will also ask you to set the eligibility parameters. You will choose how long an employee has to work for the district to earn the right to retire. And that can be either 5, 8, or 10 years of service. When somebody has 5, 8, or 10 years of service, whichever eligibility rule that person meets first is when they are eligible to retire and draw a monthly benefit for life. At the latest, it would be age 60, as long as they meet the best. But somebody may be able to retire earlier, for instance, with the rule of 75, where a person's age plus their years of service combine to equal the number 75 or 80. So for example, if you have an employee that starts working for the district at age 25, and they work for the water district for 25 years, well, after that time has passed, that person is now 50 years old. If we add their age at that time plus 25 years of service, that equals the number 75. So in that example, that person would be eligible to retire at the age of 50, 10 years earlier than waiting to reach age 60. And then the final eligibility provision we ask you to adopt is either 20 years of service any age or 30 years of service. Somebody starts working here at 20 years and you've got 20 years any age and they work for 20 years, they're eligible for a benefit at 40. That is how those parameters work. Finally, we will offer that prior service time, so all time that members have with the district will be counted coming into the plan and will count towards meeting vesting and eligibility requirements. The monetary piece is completely up to the discretion of the board. Let's talk about funding the plan. I mentioned earlier that we paid $1.2 billion in benefits to TCDRS retirees and their beneficiaries in 2016. This represents one of those benefit dollars going out the door. Of that, 77 cents of that benefit dollar comes from investment income. What our investment team, as well as our outside managers and the TCDRS Board of Directors, is able to do with the pooled assets from employer contributions, which account for another 13 cents of the benefit dollar, and finally, employee deposits into the plan, another 10 cents of the benefit dollar. So you can see how important investment earnings are to funding the TCDRS retirement plan, since we do not receive any state funding. To achieve that, we have a diversified portfolio that is broken down against asset classes. But even further than that, aside from these asset classes, it's broken down into subclasses. And if we drill down even further, we can, and you go to the website, we can see what the dollar commitment level was for each of the managers. So for instance, with equities, which is our largest asset class, that is broken down into subclasses of U.S. equities, international developed market equities, international emerging market equities, and finally global equities. And then of that, we drill down even further, and that's diversified into 25 different acting managers for 25 commitments. And some of those include Marlowe Partners, Maryland Equity, and Water Street Healthcare Partners. And on our website, you can see the actual dollar amount that TCDRS commits to those different commitments and subclasses and asset classes. So this is a history of what our performance has been since over time, essentially. And the way that we measure our performance is we compare ourselves against benchmarks. And as you can see, that we have outperformed benchmarks at the 10, 20, and 30-year returns. At TCDRS, we are a long-term investor. And what I mean by that is that on average, we see employees employed 18 years. They put 18 years on average service into the various entities they work for. And then we see them retired another, on average, 20 years in retirement. That is over a 30-year time horizon in which we have to invest for one member of the system. That is what is great about our portfolio. Because we have people in the system at all age demographics, we do not have to get more conservative with the portfolio as a single age class ages. In that sense, we are forever young, and we are able to remain the course throughout history. This is my favorite slide. This shows you, the brown line represents what our investment return is every year. Our goal is to hit 8%. We know that that is not going to happen. There are going to be years when we earn more than 8% and years when we earn below 8%. The gray shaded part represents our risk tolerance. So our investment team, along with our outside managers that we hire, as well as the TCDRS Board of Directors, comes up with thousands of different scenarios of how our portfolio can be constructed to maintain this optimum level of risk. We do not want to have completely risky investments, because at the end of the day, if we don't achieve that 8% return, our employers are on the hook for it. Their rates can go up because of it. As you can see though, since 1997, when we started diversifying the portfolio, we have remained within that band. These are the returns for every year. 2017 isn't on here yet, but it will be within the gray band again, as our 2017 return was 14.5% when all that our goal was 8. So the only times where we fell outside of the band were the Great Recession of 2008 and the subsequent recovery in 2009. Excuse me. Employer contributions. Our outside actuary determines for each of our 767 independent plans annually what they must contribute. And by law, they are required to contribute 100% of that rate to appropriately fund their specific retirement plan over time. The reason we adjust rates on an annual basis is to ensure that any liabilities that any plan has are amortized over a closed 20-year period. We want to make sure that liabilities are being paid off within the time frame of an employee's career. And we adjust the rate accordingly to make sure that that happens. Controlling plan cost. Each year, each individual Commissioners Court or Board of Directors receives what their plan is for the year, and they are able to see what their new rate is for that current plan of benefits. Sometimes the rate goes up, sometimes the rate goes down. But most of the time, they do remain relatively stable, because we do have mechanisms in place to account for adverse plan experience. So at that time, we ask the Board of Directors to review their plan and make any changes they deem necessary to benefit levels. You can either at that time decide to maintain your plan as is, you could raise benefit levels to recruit and retain talent, or you could lower benefit levels to coincide with your needs and budget here at the district. So you do have that flexibility and local control, which brings me to the next slide. So these are the actual costs of what it would take to participate with Texas County and District Retirement System. At base benefit levels, that would cost 1.98% of annualized payroll. And you can see that with max benefit levels, that rate would go up to 10.7% of annualized payroll. But this really does show you that this plan allows you to fit anywhere in your budget where you need to be. And you've got the ability to adjust these two levers on an annual basis to make sure that you are within the parameters of your budget. In your packets, there is another sheet of paper that looks like a graph and a grid, and I would imagine that in this lighting it's going to be very hard to read. But I drilled down and gave you more specific numbers for 4 different plans. Plan number 1 includes base benefit levels, that one that is 1.98% of annualized payroll. Plan number 4 just shows you the max benefit levels. Plan number 2 is a plan that actually is a little bit less than what was budgeted for retirement. I believe that Lisa stuck something in your board packet where in 2017 you all contributed $164,000 in matching dollars for the employee's current retirement plan. In our system with plan number 2, which is better than base benefit levels and provides a benefit for life for all employees, not just a select number of ones that are participating currently, and that cost, if you began participation with us, would be $134,990. So a savings of about $30,000. And then plan number 3 is just something that I throw in. It is the system-wide average of what most plans that participate in TCDRS have in the system. On line 15 of those individual plans, you see the cost. I highlighted it. That is a representation of annualized payroll, which is highlighted in the middle section of this cost matrix. So for plan number 1, base benefit levels, that plan would cost the district approximately $95,457. Again, substantially less than what was currently paid in 2017 for your current retirement plan, but allows all employees to participate. We also offer a group term life coverage policy that you can join at any time. What that does is provide a term life policy for active employees regardless of how long they've been here. The cost for that would be 0.27% of annualized payroll. And what that provides is if an employee were to pass away while actively employed, their beneficiary would receive 1 times their annual salary. That can be extended to retirees once you have retirees in the system, and that would provide that beneficiary of the retiree a flat $5,000 in retirement when they pass away. And I did include in your packets a brochure on exactly more detail on that group term life insurance policy, which is also an option that you could add on to the plan. So I want to end by just talking about the services that TCDRS provides for all of our entities that participate with us. I'm part of this top team right here, the employer services team. My sole objective is to go and visit with prospective employers. I educate them on the plan to let them determine, let their boards determine if this is the right fit for them and for their employees. If those plans decide to come into the system, you are then assigned a dedicated representative. Your representative would be right here in the middle, Roxanne Aldridge, and she is dedicated to El Paso and other surrounding areas around here. She then would come in and talk to you on an annual basis if you wish, and educate you on the plan, let you know what happened to the rate, and things along those lines. We also have a dedicated member services team that goes out into the field. They will come and give live member presentations to all of your workforce in multiple presentations, and then we'll sit with them one-on-one and give 30-minute personal benefit counseling sessions when they are ready to retire. We have a very interactive website where employees can log on and estimate benefits when they are ready to retire. They can choose different options. We have educational videos. We host an annual conference every year in July for our employers that participate, and there is no cost for this. We do not charge you administrative fees. All of that is taken off of investment income. The rate that you see on that sheet of paper is only doing one thing, and that is funding your current employees' future retirement benefits. All of these services you just get as a bonus. Do you all have any questions for me?
No, a couple of thousand.
Okay.
Okay, the state guarantees that 7% return, so like on that bad year, the state guaranteed that 7%.
7% rate of return, yes.
The state gives you that money, or what?
No, the state does not give us the money. We have to, the state dictates, so here's the thing about being a quasi-state organization. They set our rules that we have to, that we are governed by. For instance, mandatory participation, things along those lines, but they do not give us any state funding. So the way that employees were able to get that 7% is that it was there in investment earnings that had been pulled together from prior years. The following year, employer rates went up, approximately 1.5% was the average rate increase to compensate for that investment loss. And we projected rates to be smoothed. We do not pass them all through at one time. We smooth them over a 10-year period to allow the markets to recover. Of course, that next year we had a very positive return at that 26%. And so that had a little bit of not really a rate lowering of that, but it kind of stabilized them. We projected for rates to increase for 10 years incrementally, but we were actually fully recovered within 5 because of investment performance.
Okay,
So
so as long as your performance is good enough, that's how the state doesn't have, okay.
That is correct. So for instance, let me give you 2017 as an example. Our return was 14.5%, well above our 8%. When we hit that 8%, it is very easy for us to credit employee accounts with 7% and even each employer subdivision account with interest as well. You get interest on it. All that interest goes to do is fund future retirement benefit levels for the employees down the road. But in this situation, with that 14.5% return, we were able to give employer accounts 13.5% into their accounts, employees 7%, and tuck away $430 million in our reserve account. And we had, when 2008 happened, we had $2.6 billion in reserve. The TCDRS Board of Directors decided to use all of that reserve money, distribute it amongst all of the individual employer plans to mitigate the loss and help stabilize rates.
So the only chance that would change would be if we had an extended period of really bad performance for whatever reason, then the state legislature would probably change the rule on us, right?
They have the ability to, if they think that our plan cannot adequately fund that 7% over the long haul, they're the ones that would make that percentage lower.
But in the meantime, the participants make it up.
We'll make it up, yeah. And then on the, now the employer share is not guaranteed that 7%. Is that what I hear?
In essence,
We can get higher, but I mean, we're not guaranteed that same 7%.
no, you're not. You're
On our
right.
portion of the money.
The employer bears the investment risk in the plan. Employees get 7% regardless of market ups and downs.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay.
As a governmental entity, are you subject to suit, or do you have governmental immunity like the county or this district? What's the legal liability there?
Each entity is responsible for their plan. So that's why we have those mechanisms in place with the flexibility to adjust the rate. So if the rate becomes unaffordable for any individualized plan, they would have to adjust benefit levels down to make it to where it is affordable for them. By state statute, once you enter into participation with us, you're basically promising a benefit to employees. So if for any reason the district had to shut down, and we've only had around 20 entities that have ceased participating with TCDRS, but that was mainly due to being privatized or annexed, and so they were no longer eligible to participate. And at that time, the way that we closed down the plan is we assess the value of the plan at that time, along with all eligible employees and what their benefits would be, and we would give you a dollar cost to the district to fully fund the plan up until that point. So the funding of the plan is the sole discretion of that happening and being done is at a local level by the district. There's essentially no safeguard within TCDRS. And that is why we are very concerned with that diversified portfolio to have an acceptable level of risk and not have all of our eggs in one basket so that we don't drain the fund down to zero in any given 1 year. And that is what all of that diversification is doing. We have parameters in place to ensure that that does not happen.
Well, let's just say that you made some big mistakes, investments that shouldn't have been made for whatever reason, and a disgruntled, unhappy member retiree decides to sue, can they sue? And is the response government immunity, we can't be sued? So that's really my question.
I suppose they could sue. We have legal counsel, and they certainly have the right to do that. I can, if you like, I can leave you with a copy of our TCDRS Act, which goes over all of the rules and regulations about how we are governed. And it is all outlined in there where the responsibility lies, but ultimately it does go with the side of the district that's managing the plan and not TCDRS. But we've been around for 51 years and everybody's pretty happy. 90% funded. I think one of the biggest, strongest pieces about our plan, and this is actually amazing to me, is that we've been around since 1967, and we are just now going on our third Chief Financial Investment Officer. They've been around for a long time. They've got a strategy in place. We are completely transparent. You can go onto our website and see where all of the money is funded. The reason that helps our system is that the new person coming on board, we just had our Chief Investment Officer's retirement party on Friday. We had a new one start on Monday, but he's already been with us for 6 years. He knows the plan, he knows the vision, he knows the mission. And that is the strength of our plan. Because on average, you typically see Chief Financial Investment Officers at public pension systems stay on average 3 to 4 years. And in 50 years, we're going on our third.
No Bitcoin in the plan.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Mary and Lisa, real quick, just one more thing. You said that plan 2 was pretty close to what did she mention, was that Lisa and Mary? That
Yes,
was pretty close to the amount of money we are investing at the moment, right?
yes, which
So
is,
we would do a match of, what is it, 130?
yes,
That
$1.30.
was pretty similar to where we're at right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all. Okay.
Any other questions on the board?
And then the last thing that is in your packets, which you can review later, I wasn't going to cover it. Those are surrounding entities, counties, and districts that participate with TCDRS, as well as all of the water improvement districts that participate with us. And it's public information, so you can see their benefit levels there. A lot of entities that are exploring participation like to review that to see where they fit in with other similar plans like that.
Those are the wrong type of districts. Those are water control and improvement districts.
Okay.
We're just a chapter 55, really like an irrigation district.
I think Maverick is,
Maverick's a little bit different.
Different.
Be the only one, but they have a hydropower plant, which
Christina,
generates a little
really,
bit of money.
we thank you for your presentation.
I thank you for having me.
I think this is the first step into looking and have to look, compare, decide which one's best. I think the employees have to have a big part in all this stuff, as long as it's financially neutral to the district and not going to cost the district a lot of money, then it's something that we can consider. But I think it's a work in progress, of which we're going to have to study and Lisa and Mary to give us some comparative deals and for their own benefits and for the employees' benefits, and go from there. So,
Absolutely.
appreciate you.
Well, I would be happy to work with you further. My business card is in there. If you have any questions later on, feel free to give me a call, send me an email. I would be happy to explain any questions that you have. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as a reference, our equivalent is Chew and I worked with the irrigation council and with the water improvement districts and the irrigation districts, which are very comparable to us. And I think it's almost like 90% of those participate.
Right.
So the list would, if we had the correct list, you would have seen all the other irrigation districts.
We don't, as far as I'm concerned, we probably just need to look at some comparisons, and you guys get comfortable with it, and compare it to what we have now, and go forward with it. So
And
I
also,
certainly think,
Mr. Stokes, we would suggest if we would go with this plan at a 4% rate, that we would also still leave the nationwide as a supplemental, But of course, with that plan, we won't match only with the TCDRS. So they still have the option, you know, if they want to put in 7 to 10%, they can, you know, 4% would be with TCDRS and then 6% with
So
HDRS.
they have two retirement, potential retirement plans.
Yes.
Well, if you all explain all that to us, Ryan, like I say, it's mostly, this is for employees, and as long as it's neutral to the district as far as, you know, it don't cost us a lot of money,
So,
and
assuming
it's a safe program.
It stays at 8%.
Say again?
It says as long as the stock market stays, that there's a.
Right.
Yeah, there's a,
Well, of
depends on
course,
long-term returns. yeah.
Sure. That's the nature of investing in the stock market, whether you do it through a fund or however you do it. So, anyway, I think it's, you know, we just need to compare it. And mostly the input has to come from y'all. I don't know about the rest of the board of directors. Y'all got about it, but as long as it's neutral to us as far as expense, and there is no liabilities or any greater risk to our employees, and, you know.
Well, that's it, there is that greater risk of the stock market, because then you're, if you don't, as she explained, you have to make that up. That's different than what we do now, we just contribute, right? Yeah, so you are taking on some risk. It looks like they try to mitigate the risk.
35%, I think, was,
So our others is guaranteed, is what you're saying.
Well, you guarantee that 8% if the.
32, right, currently is how much is in equities.
32.
Yeah.
Mhm. We have 20% to hedge funds
Yeah, no, I had you always split it out, but the plan that we have now has a guaranteed rate of return?
No,
No.
no,
No.
we're not at risk.
No, at each individual account, depending on how they're investing, it
It's,
has a risk.
Oh,
well, that's
Some
what I'm
use
saying.
meters.
yeah, we don't have any risk in what we're doing now. We
No.
pay the amount, what I'm saying is you're taking on, you're now guaranteeing that rate of return at the long-term performance that they're hedging against, or they're,
We're gonna be the,
yeah,
you
you're.
know, if it's a long term, we're guaranteeing 7%.
Right, a little more. Yeah, you just gotta pay the fees. So, anyways, you can go back and the chart that she had there showed that they're able to manage that over a 20-year period successfully the last 20
Right.
years with large amount of volatility in it, but none of us can predict the next 20, so, you know.
Christina, you got a 5-year
Yeah, I
period
like
at
I know, well,
4.9. You got a 4.9 at 5 year, that's the only time that evidently maybe the employer's rate would have gone up to.
Or,
Did you have a 4.9 somewhere in the chart here?
we had
5 years.
7.5, so, I mean, it would have gone, but I believe during that year, they used reserves to get to that 8%, because they're tucking away reserves as well. Prior to that, there was a negative 0.7%,
Oh, okay.
but
So-
still all within that risk tolerance band to allow them to achieve 8% over the long term with an acceptable level of risk, as long as they construct the portfolio within that band.
Right.
And that's what our investment team and outside investors are doing.
And what we'd like to do is work with the executive committee on putting this together, because our goal is November 1, right, Mary? If we were to agree on it.
That's a little short notice.
We've been working on it,
Since February.
yeah, well, since February
But
strongly,
prior to
but
that.
we've been a little over a year.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, like I say, you need to visit with all your other employees and show them
Right.
the whole deal. I mean, it's a work in progress.
Mhm.
You go through the whole steps so that, I mean, your employees may think, no, we don't want to do that. Who knows? I don't know.
We have received some
Feedback.
response from our employees, and most of them are interested. Yes, the initial mandatory 4% might be
An
hard on
adjustment.
some of the employees, but most of
Have you
the
had a general
response we
meeting, though, of
received.
everybody, or you just hearing?
Yes.
No, we've been meeting with them, Robert, Pete, and I have talked to them, and there's a lot of interest, especially since they saw Fred Walker retire and, you know, his situation,
Well, that's good.
and so they're real interested in this plan.
All right.
Thank you so
again,
much.
Christina.
Thank you.
Item 4, minutes of the March 14 meeting. corrections for those that were presented to you in your packet? If not, I entertain a motion to approve as presented. Makes a motion, Larry seconds, all in favor say aye, all opposed same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Mary Cortez.
I have passed out the monthly investment and the quarterly. The only adjustment made was on the pledge amount. The pledge report I received was after the deadline, when the report was due, the major one. So that's the only correction made on the monthly and quarterly report. And before we go further, I just want to give you an update in regards to the T-bill. I did submit all the paperwork in order to add myself to the account. That took a while. They had to verify and make sure that all the paperwork submitted is correct, and no other requirements were needed. We will be meeting with Mr. Diaz and I with Laura. She didn't have any time this week, and so we're setting a scheduled date to next week to go ahead and have our signatures guaranteed. And then once we do so, we can complete the application with the T-bill, the treasury.
All right. You have the schedule investments for March 30th, which is the end of the first quarter. Needs a motion to approve it as presented. If there are any questions, comments, or corrections? Anybody?
I move we accept it.
Got a motion to accept it into our seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, it's accepted. Now, balance sheet. Maybe you want to handle where we're going? Or you want me to?
No, the balance sheet is the following report. And this is a report from Sage, a little different, but similar to what we had from Template.
It's gonna take some adjustment getting used to it.
Yes. And of course, I've included the statement.
Okay.
It gets up here.
Thank you.
Why didn't I didn't do anything else. I can't read it either.
Yeah, got it. I wasn't talking to you.
Okay.
You just thought it was weird.
Mary, 11,600, accounts receivable others, is that what I think that is?
Yes, it's the same receivable for El Paso.
For El Paso, yeah. 11,700, we always shown an inventory asset before, like that.
In QuickBooks, no, it was in a different section, I believe. So-
Okay.
It had to be in there, but
It was somewhere in there.
Yes.
And the way it's done now, is that updated monthly or?
Yes, we have work orders and inventory allocations going in daily,
Okay.
so that
computer ought
number
to
is
take care of that.
adjusted.
Of course, you have to have,
Purchases, any purchases we received as well.
do you do an actual physical inventory once a year to make sure that your
Yes, sir.
stuff coincides with it?
We do try to have two throughout the year, one at the end of the fiscal, when the auditors come over and verify, and one midway.
Any other questions, comments for the balance sheet?
The following report is the $500 check report.
not necessarily by the date, it's not necessarily by the amount you choose.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't sort
I
by.
couldn't figure out anything in
Yeah,
there.
last time we sorted it by the amount.
By the
Yes,
amount.
I guess you have to refresh it when you fail to
Just
refresh
click
it.
it or something, yeah.
You
Okay.
gotta click on that column. It's randomized.
And now, one thing, that server only costs 4,900, isn't that a pretty good price for a server?
That's expensive. Which server, that must have been the domain server. Yeah, no, that's an expensive server.
SR 530 server,
Well,
4960.
This is expense money.
That's a
He
server
didn't-
that
he
handles
didn't
what,
spend-
everything we've got? or-
That's a,
He returned,
it runs the tax and the accounting system, so that's in all the user, all the security. So it's a second one, it's a backup.
It's a backup to our first one.
I don't know which conversation we're having.
he had a question on
Okay, we'll get after
it, on
it.
an expense.
Anyway, I was trying to, so the search, yeah, it's a domain server, so that's a fairly expensive price for a server.
What is it?
Yeah, most of the servers that we use, like for telemetry and stuff, cost about $1,500, I think, with Lisa, Lisa's not here, she's in charge of it. But that one is a sort of a high-end server that
When it's handling all that, it makes sense to me.
it's